Hello, and welcome to the Mr. Flashy Flash YouTube channel. Today, we have a Neewer Z150. It's one of these mini flashes. Full disclosure, the unit was sent to me by Neewer. I did not pay for it. They asked for a review, so here it is. But otherwise, Neewer does not have any input into this review, and they haven't had a look at this video prior to its release. For anyone who's interested, I'll post a direct link to the Neewer page on the Z150. The link will not be affiliated in any way. Otherwise, let's get into it. What is it? The Neewer Z150 is another mini flash. It's in here. Actually, I lied. It's on this camera here. It's made by Neewer, obviously. It's a manual-only flash, ergo it has one of those single-pin contact hot shoes on the bottom. In the box, you actually do get some things, kind of. You got the flash, obviously, you have a USB charging cable, and you have a printout, which I thought initially was the manual, but it's actually a instruction manual that is more or less a QR code to a manual. There's some stuff in here, but really, you want to just go to the QR code. This is just a big old sheet of paper. All right, away with you. At any rate, if you go to the Neewer page about this flash, you'll see something beautiful, something amazing. Something that I haven't seen for a little while. The Flash legitimately has a GN rating listed right in the Neewer webpage. It is rated at GN 15 at ISO 100. Finally, thank you, Neewer. You actually legitimately, I don't know if you'll ever know how happy this makes me. I'll tell you, it's pretty happy. I'm pretty happy right now. It's a good feeling. At any rate, the flash is adjustable, and you can get from full power 1:1 down to 1/64th. Moving on, the field of view of this flash is at around 35 millimeters, and the color temperature is 6000 Kelvin plus minus 200 K. It uses a 3.7 volt 1200 milliamp hour battery, and the recharge time is stated at around 1.5 hours via USB-C, which is the port right over here. And it's claimed to be able to do 640 shots full power on a single charge. And it also says at full charge state, the recycle time of the flash is around 3.1 seconds. It even has an optical trigger mode, and it's listed over on the top of the flash here. You got your S1 and your S2, with the S1 being the mode where it just triggers when it detects another flash, and S2 where it will ignore a TTL pre-flash. It also has something kind of neat, a 2.5 millimeter sync port. That's kind of awesome and rare at this price range. Altogether, this package comes in at 103 grams. MSRP is $39.99 US dollar dues, or roughly $49.99 Canadian buckaroos. Operation and feel. So this flash is billed as one of those retro style mini flashes, but I'm not sure it's super retro looking. I think it looks relatively modern. Maybe I'm influenced because there's so many of these things that claim to be retro, and it kind of just has come full circle. I don't know. But this is a retro flash. It is a retro rolly flash, and this does not look like this. Overall, I actually don't mind the styling at all. I think it's pretty reasonable, and overall, the weight is not bad. But that being said, it is a fairly cheap feeling flash, which kind of makes sense. It's a cheap flash. Additionally, when you have it on a camera, it sits fairly low on the camera. Again, being this style, that's a bit of something you would expect. And I already said it, but it is a fully manually operated flash, so you have to figure out the power output that you need given your current shooting settings. However, they did give GN values, which means that if you're good at a little bit of math, you can do a bit of estimation and generally get a pretty reasonably accurate exposure value for your flash. And we'll also get into the GN value that's claimed in another section, but overall, I appreciate that there's a number given in the first place. Again, you'll probably hear me repeat that a lot. Let's quickly discuss the controls. The flash itself has a pretty simple operation. For the power button, you basically hold this thing, and for about 3 seconds until it comes on. You'll know because things light up in the back, and once it's ready to do a test fire, this will go red, and you can boop that for a test flash. Next, as I mentioned before, you have your slave modes here, and you can toggle between S1, S2, or none. And again, S1 works by syncing with any flash pulse. S2 is the one that ignores the TTL pre-flash. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Also, if you are wondering, what is this little tiny shiny thing on the top of the flash? That is where the optical sensor is for said sync modes. The flash power is controlled via this knobby here, and it's fairly large. Two things about this, though, that I don't particularly like. First, as you can see, the text here is just debossed. There's nothing filling in the lettering, and unless you're looking directly down at it, it actually can be challenging at times to see what setting you're on. Luckily, on the back, you do got a little LED display that does tell you. So if I cycle through now, you'll see it switch values. So that's not a huge deal. The second thing I don't really like about this knob, at least on my copy, is that the resistance to turn it is quite little. I would have honestly preferred a little more clickiness, just a little more stiffness. Maybe that's just me though. And as already mentioned, on the back you have a little LED indicator, and you have your flash power there and your battery level. Right now it is at 3 bars, and at max charge it is 4 bars. 0 charge or 0 bars means pretty dead. Easy peasy, barsy squeezy. Again, on the right, you have the sync port. Again, pretty uncommon at this price point and with these smaller flashes. But if you actually look on a actual vintage flash, you will also get little sync port jobbies normally. So period accurate, I guess, or vintage accurate, I suppose. At any rate, I do really like having this. I did use it in my testing, and I love that it's included on a flash this cheap. Finally, let's have a look at the bottom of the flash unit. This is it right here. It uses a metal hot shoe, and that's nice. And it uses this screw down locking mechanism. It actually will lower, I don't know if you can see it, maybe not. Oh, there you go. It'll lower a pin down there to lock the flash into place, as well as putting pressure down when you twirl this thingy. Overall, not the fastest way to put the flash on and off, but overall, works. Testing results. Overall, you know what, I'll get this off my chest right now. This flash kind of impressed me a little bit. So the flash cycle times aren't that nuts. Around 3.1 seconds between full power flashes when the battery's fully charged. 1, 2, 3. It's not fully charged, but it's pretty close. And I think it's a fairly honest assessment for the most part. And this is something that's kind of nice, and it kind of acknowledges that when the battery starts to drain, the flash will slow down. I don't see this mentioned or implied on other manuals, so I appreciate Neewer 4.8 in this one. And during one of my tests of consecutive flash testing, I was going to try to see when this would slow down and enter the over temperature mode. This is normally where cycle times are intentionally slowed, and in the manual it says it could slow to 6 seconds or longer to facilitate cooling and protection of the flash. So I made it to 84 flash pops, full power, before I noticed that this slowed down to around 4 seconds of cycle time. I never made it to the 6 seconds plus. I honestly got too bored of just sitting there counting and waiting for the interval to increase. Overall, this stated 3.1 seconds on the refresh was pretty on target. I did my run, my 84 shots, and overall calculated that per shot timing was around 3.25 seconds between full power pops. So that's pretty close, and it's close enough for me to consider that to be accurate to the marketing material. Overall, I think these conservative flash times are not necessarily a bad thing. I like them a lot. A lot of the mini flashes that I've been playing with, that I've been sent, try to promise flash times near 1 second. And it ends up being that when I do my tests and I try to constantly get those cycles or cycle timings, I will eventually hit the over temperature problem, and it'll lock me out of the flash for sometimes an obscene amount of time. The Z150 outlasted my patience. I did not make it to that point. This means that you can probably pretty reliably keep getting shots off as the cycle times gradually increase. And I do like that more than just an abrupt cutoff, which is what I'm seeing on other flashes. And overall, part of the good performance of this, or part of what I think contributes to the good performance of this flash, is that this flash itself isn't aiming to be one of those minuscule units. The larger size, I believe, lets it diffuse heat a little better. Over the testing period of me running this through the gauntlet of various tests, this never got uncomfortably hot at all. It got a little warm, but not particularly crazy. I will say my testing environment is currently in my basement. We're in summertime right now, and it's on average sitting at 24.5 degrees Celsius, or about 76 Yankee Celsius, or whatever they're called. I think overall this flash handles the heat pretty well. When it comes to the actual flash endurance compared to the claimed number, I got 639 shots out of a fully charged battery. That is one shy of the estimated 640, and that is a pretty great showing. When it comes to actual output power though, the GN value is, again, I appreciate just how much that I appreciate that they put it in the documentation. Again, thank you, Neewer. Apparently I'm at a loss for words when it comes to this. From the bottom of my shriveled, angry heart, again, thank you. At any rate, the stated GN value. It's stated to be 15 at ISO 100, and this is in meters. To look at this, I took the flash and set it up against my Autometer 4. And now I did something a bit lazy because my meter displays things and stops, and GN 15 is something in the middle between f-stops when I do the mathy maths. So what I did was I moved my flash as close as I could until it reached f16 on my meter reading. Then I read the distance, and for this flash it was 0.75. Doing the math with the GN numbers, this leads the output power of this flash to be around GN 12 when measured at ISO 100. At the 1 meter distance, that puts the value that I would normally get reading my Autometer somewhere between f11 and f16. So this generally means that the stated value of the flash is a little bit under a stop lower than the stated value on the paperwork. And that's honestly not too bad. A lot of flashes that I've measured, including ones from the likes of Canon and Nikon, missed the mark by more than that at times. I would have liked it to hit 15 on the dot, but hey, Gen 12 is actually not a bad number and much more useful than other mini flashes. And if you use it off camera, or if you actually buy one of those weird Godox tilt adapter thingies, GN 12 I think is enough to do a bit of bouncy flash work and allows you to get a little more diffuse light, assuming that wherever you're bouncing from doesn't have a turbo high ceiling. When it comes to having a look at the field of view that this flash can project to, I found that 35 millimeters is a reasonably accurate statement. So what I did was I put the flash on my 5D4 and I loaded on my 35 millimeter f2 lens, shot a fairly blank wall at around 1 meter, and had a look at the coverage. I'm not using any scientific reading here. I'm just having a look at the picture and seeing how do the corners look. And at the 35 millimeters with 1 meter-ish from my target, I did see a bit of darkening in the corners, but honestly not a crazy amount. And you could also tell that the light projection was biased a bit to the top since the flash is sitting above the lens. But otherwise, I would call 35 millimeter reasonably accurate. I switched over to 24 millimeters to see how that would look, and you can tell immediately that the corners significantly darken at the same distances, thus doesn't really cover 24 as well as 35. I would say if you do need a perfectly flat coverage for the flash, maybe consider looking at using this with the 50 millimeter to get the uniform distribution of light. But if you don't super mind, 35 is, to me, to my eyeballs, acceptable. When it comes to the flash temperature, again, I'm not doing a particularly in-depth look at this, but it looked perfectly fine. I didn't have any feelings that things were mostly off, but I'll also admit I'm not a crazy strobist, and when I usually use the flash, most of the times I'm using one, so it's my main one, so I'm not really worried about syncing temperatures between the flashes. But when I do shoot, if I do notice things are off with the white balance, I shoot raw anyway, so I just tweak and adjust as required. Lastly, let's talk about charging real quick. This charges via USB-C, and I love that. USB-C is a great port to charge with, but this is something where the info stated it's a bit weird and conflicts a bit with reality. So the main page states that roughly it'll take 1.5 hours to charge this from zero. However, it also states the charge rate can be up to 5 volts at 2 amps, 10 watts. In theory, if we looked at the capacity of the battery, it should charge in less than an hour, like pretty rapidly, if you're actually charging at the 10 watts the entire time. I get that batteries will taper off, or the charging circuit will generally taper off when it gets close to full, but this was also proven when I plugged in a little USB monitor thing and watched it charge this up. I never saw this thing suck down more than 5 watts, with 4 watts being something that I more consistently saw. And in that case, yes, 1.5 hours to charge this thing is reasonable. So yeah, kind of weird. Didn't see 10 watts fire into this, but otherwise the time given was accurate enough. Recommendation and conclusion. Overall, for how cheap this flash is, it does a pretty good job. And I personally think it packs a pretty decent punch compared to other small flashes. Overall, I'm happy with the unit, and I'm generally pretty pleased with some of the extra stuff they toss in. Again, like the 2.5mm sync port that you don't normally see, and the fact that they are willing to put in a GN value for this flash. No, it didn't quite hit GN 15 when I compared it to my Automator 4, but 12 is not bad, and yeah, it's less than a stop off, so not any worse than other companies. Overall, again, glad that the value was put on paper, and again, it's close enough. To close things out, if you are after that direct flash look or just want a cheap compact flash, this is a pretty solid option as long as you don't mind it being full manual. And I honestly think if you pair it with one of those tilt adapters, you get a pretty versatile combo for really not a lot of money. Otherwise, that's all I got. Till next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.